Got all the finish tapes put on this yesterday and worked on it till late yesterday afternoon. And I needed to let it set overnight for them to dry up enough to work on them a little bit. I actually wound up coming up here about midnight and taking a razor and cleaning off the ends of them there where they meet up with the leading edge. Had to take care of my cat, so I was waiting for her to settle down for the night, and so I figured I might as well do something productive. Wasn't quite ready for that yet. It was still pretty soft. Then I come up today and took the iron and have gone over this whole thing with the iron. Made sure to get all these pink edges down nice. But there's quite a few, well, it wasn't quite a few, there was a few holidays in here, a few places, like especially on this outboard wingtip rib, where there's a compound curve on here. It curves up and over with the curve of the wing, and then it curves down, and it's got a kind of scalloped here with the wingtip on the fabric as it turns down. This next rib here on the aileron bay wasn't quite so bad. It had a few of them in here, primarily on this one side. And then the others all had a little bit on them because they don't quite match up when you pull that tape to tighten it up. But anyway, I got those all ironed down tight, and everything looks good on it now. So I'm going to go over it now with one more coat of polybrush, and then we'll probably have to iron it down again because there'll be this next coat of polybrush will go over everything on here to help fill in all the places where there were voids and stuff that didn't quite get filled. And then I'm going to turn it over and do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to wait to do the leading edge and the wingtip until I get the bottom all done. I'm going to go ahead and put my mask on and get my paintbrush and my tools out and start slopping some more polybrush on there. I've got my overhead big fan filter going just to get air moving in here, and then I've got another fan in the door blowing air out from in here out to outside, so hopefully we get some recirculation going in here. And first things first, my paintbrush has been sitting in MEK. We've got to take it outside and fling it off and get all the MEK out of it, get it dried out before I start. The MEK doesn't appear to hurt the bristles on this any at all, and it hasn't affected the super glue that I put in there to keep the bristles in, but it does get down here on the handle and melts the paint on the handle. I've gone over that whole thing now, all the tapes with another coat of polybrush. I'm not sure whether I need another coat on top of those or not, but I've got to let that one dry, that one cure, and then we'll see how much ironing we need to do to get that straightened out. Now, a lot of people say that when you go over that with the second coat of polybrush or more polybrush, no matter whether it's a second coat with the brush or spraying it on, that the solvents in the polybrush dissolve the solvents in the polybrush that's already on there that's dried out, and those pinked edges can raise. The solvents get in there and loosen those up and can cause them to raise. And there might be a certain amount of that that's true, but for the most part, if anybody's ever worked with wood, you know that the end grain on the wood will absorb a lot more stain or water or whatever than the regular grain on the wood. And so those pinked edges are like the end grain of the wood. They absorb a lot more of the polybrush, polyspray, and stuff like that. Well, I noticed before when I did that when I sprayed the poly spray on there, that it would gather up in those pinked edges and it fuzz up, and it looked like they were raising up, but actually all it was just a buildup of the poly spray. The poly brush is the same way. Well, anyway, I went over that whole thing with another coat, and we'll let that dry out. That'll fill in, and then we'll have to do some more ironing to smooth some of that out. I see a spot or two on there that I didn't get down the way I would like with the iron on the last go around, and it should go down better now because some of those spots that were dry got polybrush pushed into them now. So we'll see how that looks after it dries out. Nothing I can do now, probably till late tonight or tomorrow morning. We'll see how it looks then. I did go ahead and go over that leading edge with another brush coat of polybrush because I noticed when I was putting those short rib covers on there that when I put the polybrush on that, I'd get some bubbles and stuff on there. Oh, it's partially from being over the metal. So I went over it with another coat of polybrush. We'll see whether I need another coat or not, and of course there's going to be sprayed on coats over that, but I get those pinholes and stuff in there filled up, covered up, so it doesn't do that with the poly spray when I put it on. The only thing I don't have is where the bulkhead rib on the inboard, I don't have that glued onto the fabric on the side of that. I got it glued to the top of that, but I didn't get around and glue it down to the back side of it there. I've still got quite a bit of work to do on that, putting some grommets in there and holes and stuff in there for the different protrusions that come out of there, the fuel tank ventilation and all of that stuff that comes out of there, the aileron cable. And I was kind of waiting on to do anything with that until we got ready to do some more grommets and stuff down there. Once we flip this wing over, there's a lot of work to do on the other side. There's numerous inspection covers that go on there, and I said it before, there's a lot of work to do on the other side. This side was pretty simple compared to the other side. Anyhow, I got my fans going, my door open, the lights on. I can go turn the lights out now and turn the heater off and go find something else to do for a while. Well, now the fun begins. I got that top side pretty much done. At least I just about wore it out working on it. It wore me out working on it. Got it done just about as good as I can do. So we just flipped it over, and now it's time to start on the bottom side. And there's a lot of stuff to do on the bottom side. There's a lot of inspection rings and stuff like that to put in here. Gussets and grommets and all kinds of neat stuff. So it's time to get started at that. So the first thing to do is to go ahead and saturate those reinforcement tapes with polybrush so they soak up as much polybrush as possible so they don't soak it out of the finish tapes when I put them on. But before I do that, I got to go over all of them with some Prep-Sol, some wax and grease remover, and make sure and get all the grease and fingerprints and dirt and stuff like that out of them. And of course I got wax on them because, well, this was the side that the knots were on and stuff, so more of the wax came off of the cord there, the lacing cord, than the other side. So anyway, I'll get started at that first. Brush the poly brush in there, and then once it dries, then I got to start laying everything out. So right now everything's just boring. I'll go ahead and get to it.